Welcome, Kentucky Go Digital. I am so glad to welcome you to the 22nd episode of Kentucky Go Digital Live, our first official episode of our March series. I'm Elaine Abernatha, Technology Integration Specialist with McCracken County Schools. I am joined here by my awesome Kentucky Go Digital Live team. We have Heather Worrell and Courtney DeRosset. Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Doing good.
So I'm very excited to introduce an amazing leader here, Jefferson County Public Schools. Her name is Faith Stroud. She is the principal at Robert Frost's 6th grade academy. Welcome, Ms. Stroud. How are you doing?
Hello, doing good, doing good.
So today we are going to have Courtney teaming up with Heather to take questions on our live YouTube chat. Make sure that you drop in there and introduce yourself, as well as let us know what county you're from so that we can give you a shout out and answer those questions if you have any. If you don't have the capability to chat, make sure that you log into YouTube, and while you are there, check the subscribe button so that you too can easily get connected and learn with us. So Courtney and Heather are going to be watching for questions and feedback also on Twitter and the YouTube live channel. But Faith Stroud is an awesome principal. An assistant principal at Mazik Middle School and Lassiter Middle School, and then a principal at T.T. Knight Middle School, and now she's the principal at Robert Frost 6th grade academy. But today we're going to be talking to her about her adventure of going one-to-one on Chromebooks, and we're going to dive into what she's learned and how she's all these different things so that you too can learn and try to take a walk in her shoes and learn from her. So I'm going to hand the mic over to her and take it away, Ms. Stroud.
All right, so I'm very, very excited to be here. A little bit about my school. The Robert Frost 6th grade academy has 475 6th graders. We're about 87 to 90% free and reduced lunch, depends on the year. Our demographics are pretty mixed, 43% African-American, 43% white, 9% Hispanic, 5% other. But the reality is a lot of our kids don't necessarily have access to digital resources at home outside of their cell phones, which sometimes also limits your ability to do flipped classroom and things like that if they don't necessarily have the access at home. What I tell people all the time is that the journey when you go one-to-one is it can be messy. I was at an ed tech team training where the presenter said, embrace the squiggle. And I really think you have to embrace the fact that when you start converting over to using technology on a regular basis, especially for pedagogical purposes, it's not a linear change. There's going to be highs, lows, ups, downs, going sideways. You're going to be all over the place, but you have to stick with it if you really want to be successful. And so basically, I framed my presentation today that with my goal of making somebody else's journey a little bit more easier than my journey. I started this 4 years ago with just the idea of how do I better support teachers? We expect teachers to differentiate instruction, have small group instruction, provide feedback to their scholars on a daily basis. When you look at the requirements of TPGES, we expect a lot of our teachers. But the question is, do our teachers really have the resources to do it? Mm-hmm. And so when I took over Frost, we were one of the lowest performing schools in the state, and we've been making steady gains since I've been the principal, but really putting resources in the hands of the teachers to make a difference. And so I hope this really helps. So I miss David Letterman, so I figured I'll format my presentation in the form of a top 10 list. So I'm going to share my top 10 things that I think as leaders, and when I say leaders, you could be a teacher, principal, superintendent, any leader that's helping to take charge and leading the efforts if your school is really thinking about being one-to-one. Here's my top 10 that I think every leader who's looking to go one-to-one needs to think about. I learned the hard way that with number 10, know the purpose of why you want to go one-to-one. When I first thought about going one-to-one, it was just because I was like, technology, yes, I'm a technology geek myself, and I was like, I knew I wanted technology, but I personally couldn't really verbalize properly to my staff at the time why go one-to-one, why the specific device or anything. And I think as a leader, before you just start making decisions, you really have to know the why behind why you want to go one-to-one. And it also needs to be something that you're passionate about as a leader, or the data says you need to be passionate about to really get the community buy-in, get your stakeholder buy-in. And so for me, it helped that the technology solved a problem and it helped us with efficiency. And with having a school that's 90% free and reduced lunch, my why really was probably response to intervention. Having the technology in the classroom allowed for more co-teaching where the computers or the Chromebooks themselves were the co-teacher. It also helped teachers accomplish what was required in the standards for TPGS. And that was another way I was able to frame the why to my staff. With parents, I explained the why of, in our mission statement, it talks about we're here to develop 21st century leaders. And so I talked about with parents and scholars how technology helps us in learning how to use technology, research with technology, create with technology will help our scholars be competitive in this capitalistic world. And for the teachers, I was also able to share the added benefit of how the technology was going to help with easing the demands of paperwork and organization because of digital workflow. When you go one-to-one, it does help with equity issues. Like I said, coming from I work with scholars who come from very poor communities. So being able to provide access that other kids might be able to have at home or other schools was huge for us. It helped relieve pressure on the library as far as, because, the library is such a limited amount of space that you can use on a regular basis. And it's a resource that when you have a bunch of classes trying to use that same resource at the same time, it limits the ability of kids to be able to do research for presentations. And so the Chromebooks for us and going one-to-one allowed more access for that type of critical thinking in the classrooms. And then versus having just one or two computer labs in the building and kids having to share computers or kids having to share only 3 to 5 computers in the back of the classroom, having one-to-one access in the building, it just provides more access. And anecdotally, I've seen in classrooms where when the Chromebooks are out, kids are just naturally more engaged. We're dealing with a generation that's used to gaming, Nintendos, PlayStations, and things that it's just something about when they have a device, they go. And oftentimes they'll go further than the teacher asked them to go. And so I think it's a valuable resource. I came up with some questions. When you talk about why do you go one-to-one, it's a very deep question to think about. Do you want to go one-to-one to go paperless? Are you trying to cut budget costs? Is it because you're trying to allow your scholars to use online textbooks? Are you trying to reduce how much you're spending on textbooks annually or every 3 to 5 years? Are you wanting to implement maybe a whole learning management platform such as Google Classroom, Schoology, or like ClassFlow so that teachers can flip instruction? Are you using it to help teachers have better digital workflow with their scholars for the submission of papers and things of that nature? Are you trying to use it to implement an RTI program? You really need to think about why do you want to go one-to-one? If you've been around the block with either accreditation visits or even audit visits, if you've been to priority school, Advanced Ed has a walkthrough tool called the Elliott. And on the Elliott, you rate classrooms based upon the 3 components I have shown here. Scholars use digital tools, technology to gather, evaluate, and/or use information for learning. Scholars use digital tools, technology to conduct research, solve problems, create original works of learning. And then scholars use digital tools to communicate and work collaboratively for learning. And you have to really think about what is the purpose of your technology. If you're a principal and you walk in the room, you need to think about what do you expect to see? If you're a district leader, what do you expect to see when you've invested all this money in technology? What do you expect to see the scholars doing with those resources. And so those are things you need to think about. I made a huge mistake when I first started implementing one-to-one Chromebooks at my school, because I didn't do the research ahead of time. And if I had did the research ahead of time, one of the things I would tell every leader that's thinking about going to one-to-one to look into is the SAMR model. The SAMR model talks about it's the evolution of how do you see technology being used in your building. Are you just substituting? Are you augmenting? Are you modifying? Are you redefining? You really need to think about, how do you expect educators to use the technology to change what is happening instructionally in your building? Is it okay for just substitution? So they're just now, instead of a paper and pencil worksheet, they're doing a worksheet PDF online. Are they just augmenting? Do you see more blogging, illustrating, polling, things of that nature? Or are you really expecting to go up and then create documents where kids are storytelling and they're using infographics and they're communicating information and they're collaborating at such a high level that they're really creating dynamic projects?
How, as a principal, did you handle the different points of teachers' abilities to do those things that on the different levels of the SAMR model? Were you okay with the entry-level teacher that didn't feel comfortable with this to be at just the substitution level versus the students creating? How did you handle that with your teachers?
For me, I had to be okay, because I can tell you, I did a poor job of rolling out professional development. And because I did a poor job of rolling out professional development proactively to support my teachers, I ended up having to do professional development reactively based upon where my teachers were. If I had to do over again, I would have maybe did a survey to see where teachers would fall within the model as far as their comfortability with it. And it's not just with using it to change instruction, but I would even have to do a survey on familiarity with the computer itself, hardware itself, applications that we might be using, like Google Docs or whatever device you're using, the different applications that might have come with that device. I should have really did a needs assessment, differentiated the support before rolling out the technology.
That's a big takeaway for those principals that are watching here now and saying, I'm about to go one-to-one. That's a huge takeaway, to be able to say, I'm going to figure out where my teachers are, and that way we can go from there. So that's
I have a question. As a principal, how did you teach yourself, or how did you get the training in order to equip your teachers? So was it district? Was it state? Was it just a personal driven? How did you learn? Because it's always changing. This wasn't around when we had our teacher ed courses,
Right. For me, I'm a fan of technology and I wanted to learn. And I happened to be on Twitter, and I started seeing stuff about EdCamp and different teacher leaders who were talking about being digital within their classroom. And I noticed that a lot of them were doing presentations and going to EdCamps. And so that was how I kind of self-taught myself. I expanded my PLN on Twitter. I started following people who were talking about Chromebooks, using Chromebooks. And then from there, I started following people that they followed. And I started going to trainings that they went to, like ESET2, and then EdCamps and things of that nature, to really kind of self-taught myself. And then I also did Google itself has free training online to do their Google level 1 and level 2 certification. And then you pay to take the assessment, but I did those on my own as well.
A lot of times we will throw around lead learner, and that is just evidence that you are modeling how teachers should continue to fill their toolbox, and you're doing it as the lead learner of that school. So that's awesome. So keep on keeping on. I didn't mean to interrupt you again.
No, you're fine, because I
love it.
I'm here to be of support, because I want, if anybody can learn from what I went through, I'm excited.
Awesome.
But yeah, you really, as a leader, to help you understand what your vision is for technology, I think you should do some research around the SAMR model, and that'll help you construct where do you think you go. But more importantly, it's going to help you construct your conversations you're going to have, because if you really have the time to do it right, you're getting stakeholder input and figuring out your entry point. And so it would be good for everybody to read, your teachers included. with this. At our school, because based upon our mission statement, a conceptual framework I use with my staff is the 4 C's, because part of our mission statement is we're 21st century leaders who soar to new heights, and we try to empower our scholars. So we use the 4 C's as a construct of what are the types of things I'm looking for when I'm in the classroom with the Chromebooks. Number 9, when you know your why, then it's going to help you choose the learning model you want implemented at your school and within classrooms. And that's going back to when I stated earlier, what do you expect to see in a classroom? Is it more of a virtual course? Are you okay with their self-directed learning on the computer? Are you expecting to see more of a blended learning model where maybe it's also like workshop model going on, where some kids are learning from the computer itself while other kids are with the teacher getting small group or one-on-one instruction? Are you expecting instruction to occur at night while they're at home? And so those are things that I learned that the teachers wanted to know. They wanted to know from me as the principal, what do you expect me to do? So that I know when I'm at home trying to demonstrate self-efficacy and I'm researching technology tools, I want to make sure I'm researching in the direction that the school wants me to research, if that makes sense.
Faith, I also wanted to give you a shout out from Rhonda Cosby is on the show in the live chat. And she's one of your fellow JCPS admin friends, and she's doing an exceptional job out there at Chancey Elementary, leading by example with her teachers. She has some teachers in the show too. Melissa Miller is on the show with her.
Okay.
And Rhonda says, "Go Faith, go." So she's very proud of you. And there are several other viewers as well.
But yeah, and so that's the main thing. What do you want to see in that, and what level do you want to see it at? Because you need to be able to communicate that effectively to your staff. All right. And so these are just some pictures that I was going to show you of, like in the top right-hand corner, that's an example of the collaboration piece where kids are working together. And that picture, they would just happen to be on a dock, and they was communicating with each other and give each other feedback on a project they was working at. But then on the left side, you might go into the classroom and see more of games occurring, that's whole group. But as a leader, you have to know your why, because for some, having a group beyond Kahoot is not enough, and it might not be as rigorous as the expectation of for the amount of money you're investing of what you want to see on a daily basis. And so you have to really be clear with the teachers on what you're looking for. Are you still going to see normal lecture type seating arrangements? And those are just things to think about. Number 8, you need to know your why, because it will determine your implementation and PD plan. So for example, if your why is just to go paperless, maybe you might focus all your initial PD efforts around how to use a specific learning management system effectively. If it's to increase like project-based learning, maybe you're going to focus more on research tools that are available and ensure that your staff can truly use it and knows how to apply it to their discipline. If your why is interventions, then maybe you're going to focus on not just the technology, but on workshop model, on how do you rotate kids through stations while managing the classroom, while having the technology out. And so if it's about collaboration, maybe you're going to focus on just the specific tools that you want them to use to increase collaboration online. I'm moving to the direction now where I'm trying to improve instruction through the technology use. So I've been now focusing more of my efforts on, for example, my social studies teachers are diving deeper into how to use Google Earth, and we're getting ready to move towards purchasing and using Google Expeditions, where my math teachers use a lot of Google Drawings because of how you can do manipulatives online. My language arts department focuses more on Google Docs and those collaboration features. And so you really have to think about your why, because you don't want to just be spinning. If you don't know your why, you're just spinning and offering a hodgepodge of PDs that's not helping anybody.
So Faith, you have differentiated your PD according to what those individual teachers or language or their subjects, what they've needed. Love that.
Because we're finding that, like, for our math classrooms, like for us, the Google Classroom itself is not just enough of a tool to help implement technology in the classroom. Our math teachers needed real practical tools on if they're going to improve their pedagogy in math, they needed something to really help them do that. And so for us, Google Drawings helped with manipulatives, but at the same time, specifically with math, we've been working with them on the workshop model because of RTI, and we use Study Island as a whole school. And so it depends on the department and their specific needs, how we support them with the technology. Any questions with that?
No, I love that. I love that. And then now it brings me back. You said Study Island. Now your entire school can have access to it and not just be stuck in the library and trying to rotate into those computer classrooms.
Right. And actually, I have a period in the building where my whole school is on Study Island because I do the connection between MAP, where they have their individualized learning plan that they work on with Study Island.
Yep. I love it.
Daily. So, and then that leads me into just talking about one of the things as a principal you really want to think about, or as a leader, when you first roll out the technology, you're just like on fire and you have all this professional development you've planned. And then guess what? The next year you have new people start. If you have to be really intentional on making sure you have a written out plan on how you will onboard new people every year. We cannot, especially with technology, you cannot assume that they're going to get along and just know what to do because they're hanging around people who are doing it. And then you also have to make sure you include your classified staff into the technology training so that they are very much aware, because oftentimes people don't realize your classified staff lives in the neighborhoods of the kids that go to your school. And sometimes they're your best advocates who can explain to parents that they live next door to of what's going on. And actually over time, my classified staff, they're some of the best ones using our Google tools for digital workflow. And I found that out by accident. And so now I'm very intentional as I get new classified staff on, training them as well. I also decided, because of the amount of training and support that was needed, I intentionally implement a master schedule that allows for embedded PD so that I can have technology training regularly, even throughout the year, based upon walkthrough data. If I see needs arise for technology, I can support them throughout the year without necessarily making people stay after school and give up extra time.
Do you care to, I'm raising my hand like I'm in your class. I'm like, ooh. Do you care to elaborate on that piece right there that you said that you adjust your master schedule to include PD? Because I have a feeling that if you can send us that so we can share that.
Yeah.
As a principal, that is golden that you can manipulate that. And I know it's different for every building, but just give me an example.
Yeah, so, I send my kids get 2 related arts, and it's twofold. One of the reasons why I give them 2 related arts, because oftentimes with kids who are been novice and things, they're always pulled out of special area. And for me, at my core, I believe in the arts, and I think kids need experiences. And if we expect them to do better, we've got to support them holistically with their development. And so I provide 2 related arts so that if you have to get pulled out of one, you still have the other. But by providing that time, that means there's 2 planning periods for the teachers, one that's theirs contractually, and then the others that's mine. And I dictate what they do during that planning time. And so oftentimes we'll use that time to sometimes maybe do a training to expose people to something that they might not have necessarily dived in on their own with. So for example, maybe we saw on our walkthroughs that after lunch kids are getting antsy. So that led us to doing a Go Noodle training on how you can use Go Noodle or even other technology apps to help break the monotony, brain breaks and things of that nature.
How often do you review your walkthrough data?
Monthly.
Okay.
We still look at it anecdotally, like weekly, but formally as a team, we look at it monthly.
Okay.
Or my data is showing that people we might not be seeing collaboration. So we'll actually create an activity where teachers have to go through the motions, because that's also what I learned. When it comes to professional development, you can't just talk about it. You actually have to have the teachers do it as if they're the scholars themselves. if you really want them to transfer it to their classroom. They need visuals. A lot of teachers, when it comes to technology, they need visuals and the actual practical implementation of it. And sometimes some of my EPD time is then I have them take an upcoming lesson and infuse it with the technology they learned. And then I can have my STC pop in and then give them feedback based upon what occurred.
Awesome. I love that. Love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing.
And the last tip with knowing your why and then be able to create the vision, Google one-to-one in Kentucky or, in the nation, and find people's websites or try to schedule a visit to school that might be doing what you want to do. Because sometimes just seeing schools implement and being able to possibly talk to the teachers and talk to their scholars, you'll get the barriers, but also the successes that's come with their journey. All right. So my number 7 is, once you know your why, that'll determine what type of device you will need. And so we're in a way sort of shifting course. So no matter what, we're still a Chromebook school where a majority of our classes have Chromebook carts in them. But we learned that the Chromebooks for my arts department weren't necessarily the best devices for what they was trying to do instructionally. So now I'm getting iPad carts for my arts department while everybody else is still using the Chromebook carts. And so your why is going to help determine what type of device that you want. Also, you need to think about, are there other devices? Because now we're also next year looking into purchasing the Google Expeditions for the social studies teachers so that they can do more virtual field trips and things of that nature as well with the VR environment. And so you have to really think about all that when creating your plan. And then at my school, we don't allow the kids to carry the Chromebooks. We tried that out our first year. When you have 6th graders take Chromebooks to the cafeteria and you've got ketchup, ranch dressing, and everything else, you learn, I don't know. Our first year, we had a lot of devices broken just because 6th graders sometimes are clumsy, and it wasn't that they was dropping them on purpose. So we made the investment, because if you go with carts for every room, you actually have to buy more Chromebooks than there are actual kids. And so you really need to think about, how do you expect Chromebooks to move throughout the building? And then because of with my population, we don't take Chromebooks home, because right now, because of the cost, it's not necessarily that we would get reimbursement for it if they're stolen or lost. And so for me, I made the choice where they're always available at school. And then I provide time where if a kid wants to come to school to use the computers even after school, they can.
And I know that's a school to school based decision, of course, but
Right.
but it's interesting too that one of the major things of not letting them take it home is that it's going to be there when they get there. And it's going to be charged because you're putting them on those charging carts, and that they're going to work. And that because you have extras, that if one starts to fail or one doesn't work, then you have another one for it. So every kid has it 100% of the time.
Right.
Love it.
And then just because I know they're being used so much, and if you were ever a computer lab teacher, you know about keyboards and keys popping off. Because Chromebooks are not as durable as traditional laptops or as traditional keyboards, you have to really find a device that is durable for what you're trying to do. So that was my number 7.
I have one question about that. When you were purchasing these, did you look into a warranty, or did you just do the 1 year or the 3 year?
I do the 3-year warranty.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I know some other districts are now looking into leasing their Chromebooks. I haven't explored that yet, but I do the 3-year. I also do the white glove service.
Oh, yes.
So that they'll take care of all that extra stuff that I don't feel like taking care of.
Awesome. Yep.
But yeah, and so that's been helpful. But because you have to be careful though, because they're cheaply made, for me, the warranty was important, or else I would just be straight replacing Chromebooks all the time. Now, if you're a high school and you're going 1-to-1, you might have the ability to especially have, or even now or if you're maybe even in middle school with older kids, you might start thinking about having kids trained on how to do part replacements and even order your own parts. But that's like down the road future thinking, but it's something you might think about. Your why will also determine how you organize your devices and assign for student use. So for me, since I have Chromebook carts, that's one thing. But if you're letting kids take them home, now you're dealing with contracts, fees, and etc. You have to think about, are you going to, since they're like only a couple $100, is it something where the kids, will they buy the Chromebook and then own it at the end of the year, or will it still be school property? Those are things you have to think about. And I know like across the river in Clarksville and different places, you might be able to get more information for people who actually have the Chromebooks go home. And then other places in Kentucky as well. Now here we have Chromebook carts for our teachers, but you need to think about what type of cart. Do you want one that can break apart, different things like that. Now, because that means you have multiple kids using computers in multiple classrooms, we give every scholar a number. So if you're number one in math class, that means you're number one in social studies, you're number one in language arts, and etc. So that any Chromebook might only be used by 4 to 5 kids at a time, which makes it easier to isolate if there is damage to the Chromebook. And then I chose not to pay for a monitoring service where a teacher could sit at their desk and see all the screens. It's an expectation for me personally, where I expect you, especially dealing with 6th graders, I want you up walking around the room. But I know some people do buy those services so that the teacher can see what's going on the screen and be able to monitor. So that's a decision, that's a financial decision you might have to make. And then more of my district is in charge of the online management system. They've now made the decision that like I don't access the console management part of Google. They run it for the whole district. There's pros and cons to that because I have to call them a lot to be like, hey, I need this done, or hey, I need these Chromebooks grouped this way. But if you're using Chromebooks, there's actually a way where you can group your Chromebooks. So for example, if there's a specific application that I want pushed to all the math teachers, I can push it to those groups that are organized for math teachers versus having to push an app to all of the Chromebooks in the building.
And the same thing if you're watching in your high school, like the new EOC requirements, that test nav program that can be pushed out. So if you have Chromebooks or you're thinking about Chromebooks, it's an easier, install.
Yeah.
Chromebooks are easier to push out as opposed to have to go manually to every single computer. So that's a great point.
That was nice. That's why part of the reason that drove us to grouping them was we was able to push out to the rooms map testing. And that was the only app they can even open the way we set it up. When they opened their computer, it went straight to the map test. And then once we finished, we could remove that and then have it back to normal access again. So that was nice.
We have a question, Faith, from Melissa Mill. What were the teachers using for digital citizenship to work with the kids?
Ooh, okay. Common Sense Media has a lot of resources. We kind of created our own where we have a PowerPoint that they go through, and the teachers do lessons at the start of the school year, and then they sign off on an agreement regarding proper use.
I want to throw in too, I know there's tons out there, but I'm a huge fan of the digital driver's license. It is very thorough. And I've actually, I have my license too. And so I've gone through it, and I know a lot of teachers have, and I know that there's tons of options, but that is one too that breaks it down by different modules based upon grade. So high school may be, exposed to different things. So their level, they may look at something a little bit differently as opposed to the elementary school. So I don't know, Faith, have you all looked at that one?
And I know Google just came out with something this summer that I haven't had time to look at yet.
I haven't looked at that one either.
So I wanted to chime in on the digital driver's license. That was actually created by our chief digital officer here in Kentucky, Dr. Marty Park, and in collaboration with UK's Dr. Jerry Swan. So they built that together, and students had a lot of input.
in the revision of the DDL, the digital driver's license. And it's our favorite word of all on Kentucky Go Digital Live, the F word, which is free. We love that word. So check out the digital driver's license, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes of this episode.
Yeah, so this is a classic example of why networking with people online has benefited me. So now when I finish this, I'm going to look into that. And so that's why expanding your PLN is so important.
And Faith, it's really neat because you can go in and check. Every teacher can have their class set to check their students, and you can go on and check their progress, and it's all done online. It's very easy.
Yeah. I'm going to say Melissa Miller wants to come visit you, Faith. So wherever she may be.
Email me if somebody wants to come out. Just shoot me an email, and I don't mind.
You have the following right now. They're all wanting to join.
Yes. And then that takes me to, here's the hard part where you need to make friends with the ID department in your district. And sometimes I need to have coffee on hand and everything. Sure that you have the infrastructure to implement a one-to-one environment. Because if you're like me, I was kind of rogue. I was like one of the first schools in a long time to go back down this road again. It's been years since a school had attempted this. And so when you tell people you're going one-to-one, it's not just that a classroom here or there may be using a computer, but you really need to explain that in a moment. So for example, at my school, there could be 475 devices trying to access the access points in the building, in addition to any wireless devices that the kids might have on them or teachers have on them. And so you really have to have them come out and do scans and truly check, do you have the bandwidth and the access point to handle and the infrastructure to handle going one-to-one. Something that some people don't think about when you go to Chromebooks, they don't connect to a printer. So make sure you have a printer that can access cloud-based printing. And so I always like to remind people of that as well.
Faith, I have one more question, and I don't want to get you too far off of your training, but keyboarding skills. How have you seen that with your students? Because most of them have these amazing thumbs that they are quickly just texting. But how have you addressed keyboarding skills?
They still pick. I know some of the language arts teachers kind of use it like as a warm up, like some free keyboarding app of some sort. My technology teacher, he actually has it as part of his like curriculum. But even beyond keyboarding skills, you'd be surprised how to use the trackpad skill. A lot of my kids struggled with even how to use the mouse that's built into the keyboard. And so you do have to take some time to go through it, but we haven't said, let's just teach typing or anything like that. So that is a question like my ELA department has brought up to me that we're currently exploring.
Love it.
But yeah.
Faith, Julie Cummings, who is the principal at Eisenhower Elementary, she just in and she said Faith is a great resource. She was very helpful in showing me what has worked for her and the pitfalls to avoid. So you have a lot of fans over here on the YouTube live chat.
Whoop, whoop. Hey, I appreciate everybody. I cannot do this alone. And sometimes even when you have somebody else come in and you're meeting with people about your systems, it helps you refine your systems as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I'll go to number 4. How will you sustain the technology? It's kind of like Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. Let me tell you, money is a reality when you start going one-to-one. I don't know if you people realize this, but Chromebooks have an end-of-life policy. So after the launch, after 5 years, Google will no longer send any updates to those devices. And then naturally, between 3 to 5 years, the devices just really sometimes just don't work because they're cheaply made. So, you can assume that every 3 to 5 years, you need to buy new Chromebooks, especially if they're carrying them or taking them home. That's going to increase wear and tear. By having it in the classroom, that's where I go to you can stretch it out to the 5-year mark, but you really have to think about your deployment plan. I do know that sometimes schools get grants and you might be able to buy all of them at once, but are you going to be able to replace them all at once 5 years from now? You need to think about that. I've kind of been doing now it was by accident because I started out with 175 kids and now I have 475 kids and rising. And so on accident, we had a delayed rollout, which is actually helpful because pretty much every year I've budgeted about $30,000 to replenish like 20% of my inventory every year. I have a resource teacher that's like my tech person who's my full-time, she's like a STC/instructional coach because I marry the two together that I have available to help with needs throughout the building. Whether it's troubleshooting the actual technology, getting on the phone to say, hey, the network's down, what's going on? Hey, this access point is blinking, it's showing green, but it's not working. What's going on? We need somebody out here. So it helps to have somebody to handle all those type of issues.
Does that person also help with a little bit of instruction?
Yes. Oh, no, a lot. Like models, we'll go in the classroom and model technology if needed.
Because, I mean, it's 2018. Really, it's the same thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, because sometimes it's hard to tell teachers we have to evolve. We can't have it separate. Like you don't go to one table and talk about instruction and then go to another table and talk about technology. I love that these worlds have now collided.
It's hand in hand.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
So that's the sustainability piece. And I put on here some questions, you might think about. Leasing is now an option. I don't know anything about it, but you might want to try to find out if somebody is doing it to figure out if that's something you want to look into. So do you plan on leasing or purchasing? How many devices are you going to keep on hand in case devices break? What's your plan for repair and budgeting? I know a lot of times with some of the issues we typically see with Chromebooks, a lot of times they'll try to not support them with warranty because they'll say it's just damage versus accidental or something. And you might go back and forth. I tell you, become friends with the reps. A lot of times when you really talk to them, explain what's going on, they'll help you with getting things fixed. Even with access points, over time, access points will need to be replaced because the technology within the access points themselves change over time. So those are things that you have to think about. Some questions that might come up from the staff is, people get paranoid, especially with the NSA and all that types of stuff. Who owns my work in the cloud? Do you need to develop policies regarding student use, regarding teacher use? Because it's different than just using the laptop. Now you're having people possibly store items in the cloud. Who owns that work? Those are things that I will tell you teachers will ask and that you want to get clarification from like your district and different people. And these are questions I'm currently trying to work with my staff to help them get answers on. And more importantly, if you're investing a lot of money into this technology, what is your plan to monitor the impact of being one-to-one? And so that's something you really need to think about and be transparent about that it is being monitored because it's a huge financial investment. And so it's just not something you can laying around somewhere not being used.
Faith, Julie Cummings, the principal at Eisenhower, she said she actually did receive a deeper learning grant and she has purchased 130 Chromebooks. She said, yay, JCPS. I consider technology as building infrastructure to have tools for a lasting impact on student achievement. So really that foundational beginning to have that long-term impact for kids. I agree with you, Julie, totally.
Yeah, it's huge. And then number 3, talking about, how they're used and the management, you need to ensure that Chromebooks devices are being taken care of by the students and teachers. And I hate to put an emphasis in teachers because sometimes teachers teach with blinders and the management of the devices itself is not as strong. But you got to think about a Chromebook cart could be upward to about $10,000 worth of computers. And if somebody's not, ensuring that the kids are using it appropriately, you could look up in a month's time and have keyboards destroyed, cracked monitors for people dropped them and never reported it. And so even though, yes, you trust your staff and you expect good instruction to occur, you still have to have systems in place to check to make sure that the Chromebooks are being used appropriately, to determine whether or not you need to review expectations with the right stakeholder. You need to have a system on how do people report that it's damaged, and that's where it helps to have a full-time person, maybe even a Google form that the teacher or the scholars can fill out to report damage or something need to be fixed. You got to have in my staff handbook is a expectation for proximity control and monitoring the technology, and a statement that if we see that it's not being managed effectively, that, you know, you hate to do it, but sometimes you might have to pull the Chromebook cart. And you need to put those type of documents and systems in writing. And then, like I said, for the kids, requiring some type of digital citizenship course. And then throughout the year at key times, we review digital citizenship expectations as a reminder, just like how when you come back from winter break, you review all the school expectations. When you come back from winter break, you got to review technology expectations. And then number two, one of the things I love about Kentucky Go Digital is that a lot of the episodes dealt with digital workflow. But when we went one-to-one, and then because I was modeling it, a lot of the teachers started using the tools for themselves a lot. And so we had improved digital workflow. We use Team Drive with our PLCs. I use Blogger. I have a public blog for my parents. I have a internal blog for my staff where we post updates. We use the Team Drive for PLC collaboration, online data walls. I use Google Classroom to manage my TPGES work, for assigning like growth plans, reflection on growth plans, things of that nature. And now you have teachers experimenting and want to venture out. You know, now I have a teacher who's doing Vex robotics. They want to try other tech tools as well. And so that was one of the benefits of going one-to-one. And then my little drum roll. My number one is leaders need to model the use of technology. One of my favorite quotes is Todd Whitaker, that when the principal sneezes, the whole school catches a cold. I recommend if you plan on using Chromebooks themselves, get Google certified. If you plan on using iPads, do the Apple certification, because your teachers will have lots of questions and they expect you to be the leader regardless of what you know or don't know. They still expect you to be the leader. So I recommend you really do the training up front. I recommend if you have an STC that they get the Google admin console, because even though it depends on your district if they'll have the ability to use the console or not, but them understanding how the console works is going to help them communicate to the district person a lot better who's running the console. To really give feedback on lesson plans and things of that nature, and lessons and observations with TPGS, having that technology lens will help you give better feedback to your teachers. And make sure you have a plan in place for your administrative staff as well on what is their expectations with technology. And then, as we've discussed throughout this presentation, make sure you connect and grow with other PLN members who are on the same journey as you, and that you lift each other up, because ultimately, and why I do what I do, and why some days I feel like my hair might be falling out, is because ultimately I love my scholars and I want them to have every advantage that my own kids would have. And so I do it for them daily.
You can just tell the faith, you have such compassion for your school, and that you want to drive them to be every one of those students. You treat them like they're your own. And I commend you for that. You're amazing, amazing leader. So you have shared so much with our viewers and on your pathway, and how you've really given them a true leg up on if they're going to decide to take this road, what they need to look at. And if they thought maybe they were going to take this road next year, maybe they see stuff that they need to hold up. Wait a second, let's not put the cart before the horse. And yeah. I'm really commending you on how you're just putting even your stumbles. And so that's one of the things that as Kentucky Go Digital, what we're trying to do is to connect and share with others so that we are all not doing the same thing and right. Struggling the same way. So
and I would also say my last slide, and just in case you didn't know, I am level 1 and level 2 certified, and I'm still growing. But I will tell people, be mindful, and these are once again from mistakes that I learned. Don't make decisions in isolation. Try to involve stakeholders when you can as you start creating plans and rolling them out. Technology is only effective as a learning tool when educators have the skills to use it in an instructionally sound and pedagogically effective way. And you really got to keep that in mind. And then my favorite one to be mindful of, sometimes when you try to do too much, you end up doing too little. Don't bite, really, really take the time to plan it out, because if you don't and you just try to bite off way too much, in the end, you're going to implement nothing. Really think it through, involve your stakeholders, and be intentional with your plans, and make sure it aligns with your mission and vision, and be passionate about what you do.
I love it. I love it. And there's all your stuff. Do we have any questions out there for anyone? Did anybody had any questions?
It's okay to stop sharing.
There you are. Gosh, I'm blown away at the fact that your passion and your dedication to your students, and how you've taken such strides, and this, you said 4 years ago you've started this journey. So it's but I don't think, I'll ask you this, do you think that you would ever go back, or you're thankful for your
no,
passion?
I don't know what I would do without the technology.
Yeah.
I don't know how, and now I think my teachers are at the point, I don't know if they know how they would be able to function without the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And those students, now that they have the ability to do things that they weren't able to do before, you've put those into their hands, and it's
And I will tell you, one of the things I'm excited about for next school year that we're looking at rolling out, I had a team that's been kind of working with it this year, but we're going to go school-wide next year. It's a whole idea of using Google Calendar as your agenda.
Yes.
And so it was just one of those, why are we spending money on purchasing agendas if we're one-to-one? You just have these ahas, and because I had a team already experimenting, now I'm going to be able to take teachers and put them in front of the other teachers as teacher leaders, and there'll be even more buy-in, because it's not me saying it, it's going to be the teacher saying it.
And then that agenda can be live, and the parents can see it if they need to, and it's endless. I love it. I actually want to come visit, if I could come visit too.
Hey, come on out.
That would be wonderful. So awesome show. If we don't have any other questions, then we're going to roll on. Courtney, could you share with everyone how they can continue to get support with Kentucky Go Digital?
If you are watching with Kentucky Go Digital, you can join in, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel on KentuckyGoDigital.com. And Brooke, who's not with us, but she created an awesome Facebook page. So you're welcome to, I'm not a Facebooker, but everyone else in the world is. So be a friend with Kentucky Go Digital and join the hashtag Kentucky Go Digital. You will be linked to tons of people that have amazing ideas, and it's a strong PLN. And we will be definitely showing support for KISTI next week with Kentucky Go Digital, with the session, but everywhere. So if you can, try to make it to KISTI next week. It is so much more than a technology conference. It is teaching and learning too, and it's next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in Louisville at the Galt House. So we hope we see you there.
Heather, could you talk to our viewers a little bit more about the other portion of our regionals that we have?
Absolutely. But first, I just wanted to say, Faith, what you did today was exceptional. And I've been over here like texting and tweeting or whatever. And I texted my boss and I said, what a comprehensive, thoughtful, you crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's with this today. And we talk about purple cow work. This is some of the most remarkable purple cow work I've seen in a long time. So kudos to you, sister. I mean, we've been in the trenches together talking ed tech for years. We were at boot camps together and ed camps together, and we've had our hiking boots on, and to really see in the past 4 years how far you've come and how far your school has come under your leadership. It's just so special. So I just want you to know I'm so very proud to have you in my professional learning network, to call you a friend. You were the first SBAC group who let me get in a little audience with JCPS with your Area 3. And so I'm so grateful for you. And because of you and the work that you did pioneering and getting us that entry point, we're seeing so many principals across JCPS take off with their digital leadership. And I owe it all to you for getting us that entry point and for pioneering this work and believing in it. So I just want to give you a shout out. I'm a big fan of yours, Faith Stroud.
Oh, thank you.
So regional events, they're coming up. We're going to talk more about those regional events after KISTI. We'll have a forum for everyone to register. All of the regional events are free, and they showcase Kentucky Go Digital leaders across the state. More details coming soon.
Thank you, Heather. So next time we'll see you here March 5th at 1:30 to talk to Josh Whitehouse. He's an athletic director at Thomas Nelson High School for Nelson County Schools on digital tools for athletic management and their systems of efficiency. So don't forget that as you create, connect, and share your good ideas to our hashtag so that others can share those around. Kentucky Go Digital. Yes. Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Twitter.